Frontier has just announced that the Trailblazers update number 3 will be released on Wednesday, April 30th. Um, I'm very excited about this one. It looks to be what is maybe the biggest update in the game in a very big amount of time. In fact, certainly the biggest since Trailblazers launched. But in some ways, it's probably, or at least I would personally characterize it as an even bigger one because, and we'll get through it in a moment, it fixes a number of things that really needed fixing, and it makes what effectively was a beta into something that is more of an actual beta and more an actual mainstream thing versus the highly experimental thing that it was before. So I'm incredibly excited. So what is it? The operational economies and population growth within player colonized system has been extensively reworked following player feedback. These changes are designed to allow significant more flexibility in building out systems to create any desired economy and to significantly boost economic output of colonized systems. This was a way overdue change, and I'm not going to necessarily spend all the time reading you the details when you read them yourselves, but there's strong links and weak links between local market and ports and supporting facilities that influence how colonization markets work, which again, I'll let you read the details of how it's specifically going to work, which by the way is very, very complex. So gonna again read it through the details, and even then, I'm probably gonna have to pull out my notepad and kind of scribble down how certain things work because you and I cannot make perfect sense of like how this exactly specifically works. But we'll get to it once the patch is actually live and we can measure effects directly. We'll talk about it more then, because at that point, by the way, colonization would practically be usable finally, which means a lot of people will eventually start building again, as many folks I know are effectively on hold as far as building their systems because they were expecting these changes to come. And now we're here, or rather, next Wednesday they will be here. But like substantially, the biggest changes are there's these links which are boosted by a certain set of characteristics related to the bodies and economies and sort of factors. And then there's also the fact that colony type ports built in specific locations will have an inherent economy associated with them, which is what we had seen in the change that was incorrectly rolled out a while back, and which then was rolled back. So a colony type port placed around Nugent Star would be high tech and tourism. One placed out around Rocky and Ice Planet would be industrial and refinement. And these would be the starting economies, which then would have modifiers if there's geological factors. Extraction and industrial would be added. If it has organics, it would add agriculture and terraforming. And if it has rings, it would add extraction. And this is what colony type ports will start from. And then these ports would further be modified by the strong and weak links as described in the release notes, effectively changing the way their economies gets configured both in the local body and in the overall system. If these work as intended, I think these are very good changes, and this is a very well done system. I would also like to praise Frontier for actually writing some patch notes that explain how things are going to work, which is not what they've always done in the past, but they have taken the time this time to do it. And I will say it is, and I think I represent just myself, but actually a good chunk of the community in saying thank you. It is much appreciated. This level of transparency is more than welcome. It's something that we were looking forward to. So thank you for hearing us out and responding to that. A few other things. Population is going to be boosted significantly, and that in turn will drive the overall level of output of facilities and commodities. They said within the beta, the population number was at a reduced level for balancing purposes. Like maybe, I don't know exactly what this means, but like population started by increasing at the beginning of the colonization beta, and then they actually axed that mechanism. So population was no longer increasing soon after. But now that mechanism is going to be brought back, and there's going to be significantly higher population with significantly higher maximums with weekly tick that will increase things quickly for the first month, and then a slow curve that will more gradually increase. Like this will again make ports more productive and economies more meaningful and useful. This is a good change, and overall, it's good to see this. Um, Ruler and law and order around colonization ships and construction sites. This is a minor change, but a welcome one. Um, this customization, which is again something that they will probably sell for ARC. So we had announced paint jobs for stations. I think is a good change. It's good to have the ability to customize, even if it's for ARCs or stations. So welcome to see that. And then there's a number of power play changes with rare good merit rewards being reinstituted, which is good. And then some changes regarding offensive, defensive, and escape pod ethos, which again, I'll let you read in more detail, with some rebalancing of cartographic and exobiologies, rewards being bumped up, and a few other, again, changes to the way merits work in power play too. Probably one thing most everyone will be most excited about is this announced fix of the stutter bug. Yeah, go FDev. Thank you for fixing the stutter bug. If this turns out to be true, this is probably the single most impactful fix for the game as a whole in a very, very, very long time. So let's hope this actually proves to have been fixed, because the stutter bug is an absolute cancer on the game right now, and being fixed is more than a welcome thing. Super excited. A number of kind of smaller changes regarding disconnects. The Corsair mass lock factor is fixed. This again was something it had inherited from the Imperial Courier template, and it was 7, which was ridiculously low. It is now 17, which is a much more appropriate number for a heavy medium, which the Corsair is. Again, minor fixes on crashes to desktop, like minor fixes, minor gamma fixes, changes. Now, this one is a bit more mysterious, which is adjusted the Corsair heat dissipation. So in this, part of it deals with something I reported on earlier, which I then also corrected, which is the heat capacity. Note, not the heat dissipation. The heat capacity of a Corsair is the same of that of the Imperial Courier. And it still is. And we'll see if that gets adjusted or not as part of this quote heat dissipation change, even though you taken literally, it wouldn't be, because like heat capacity and heat dissipation are different things. But we know these patch notes can sometimes be quirky, and sometimes people say heat dissipation, but they actually mean heat capacity, or they mean a combination of heat capacity and heat dissipation. So we'll see what this actually means in practice next Wednesday. But the heat dissipation value I had reported as being the same of the Imperial Courier at 25.05. That was actually incorrect. That was an initially quoted number, which was a typo. In fact, the heat dissipation of Corsair is a juxtaposed version of that. It is 52.05, which I think is actually a typo in copying over the value of the Imperial Courier. And that's how it came to be 52.5, because that is the most reasonable explanation for why it is exactly that value. But maybe there's some other story to it. What will it be changed to is a question in my mind. As in, was it that 52.05 was a typo and they're actually reverting back to a 2505 of the Imperial Courier, which was the intended original copy? And if that is the case, that's going to kind of cripple it, because they're going to kind of halve the heat dissipation of a Corsair, which is already considered to be low. I don't think that's going to be the case, but it could be the case. Again, this adjusted, the Corsair heat dissipation is supremely cryptic, so we're kind of guessing at this point. Or maybe they heard the message that the heat profile of a Corsair really isn't great, and they also heard that the ship in general, outside of Antixino circles, hasn't been received as enthusiastically as they would have hoped. And If that is the case, they might have adjusted the heat capacity of a Corsair upwards, which would make sense, if you ask me, because for it to have the heat capacity of a Corsair doesn't make sense. And they would probably have adjusted heat dissipation accordingly, either raising it further or at the very least keep it at the same level, but with a significantly higher heat capacity, which would still be a welcome change. Again, we don't know. This adjusted Corsair heat dissipation is super cryptic. We'll see. We'll see what that entails. Then there's a bunch of minor things, fixing minor tweaks with the Corsair, which in my mind are minor fixes, but they're welcome. They fixed missing colonization context, which occasionally happen. So that's actually a good thing. This is a bug that was actually more impactful. Missing construction points, that's welcome. The Alastair military not counting as a requirement, that was a bug that was reported, and that's fixed, and that's welcome. Fixed planet ports not signing more than 3 commodity types. I thought they already fixed that, but if they refixed it or fixed it, definitely that's welcome. Fixed on-foot settlements not having the correct max commodity supplies. We have 3 for small, 5 for medium, and 7 for large. That's a good and welcome change. Fixed instances where constructions could not be renamed. That was a bit of a rare one, but it's welcome. Fixed incorrect images being shown in the facility construction selector. That was inconsequential, but really it was an error, so it's glad that was fixed. Reduce the orbital speed of ports constructed around neutron stars, white dwarfs, and black holes. So no more lantern light, sadly, although obviously from a functional standpoint, that is a fix they kind of needed to do. But, you know, it was great to have lantern light. You can buy the bobblehead if you want to have a memento of that, or you can listen to Lantern Light, the song we just put out as part of the Heroes of Mankind music album, which again sings about that now time-bound experience. Now, and this is a lot more meaningful or impactful, fixed many construction depot and beacon launch location around stars to more closely respect their heat output with stellar rings in any binary partners they might share an orbit with. This is the cause of most failures to claim star system. This may still occur in some instances, and team is working to resolve these. So now a lot of systems that were failing as far as claiming them as a colonization target should have been fixed. Oh, not apparently all of them, but this is again a welcome thing. Fix a bug that caused constructions to be placed in the final asteroid cluster of asteroid ring instead of requested star. We are relocating most of those constructions to their own spaces in the system. So this was a major bug regarding placement of stations, which supposedly has now been fixed. And I mean, it's great. This is great that they have fixed this or reportedly fixed this. I don't know on Wednesday what that looks like. There's a known issue which remains, however, which is in some cases the space position for construction depot and constructed assets are incorrect frame of reference, so you can actually reach them, and they're kind of like running away from you, and you can actually you're not actually able to dock at them. And this is a known bug which doesn't happen often, but obviously if it does happen, it's very annoying. But it is flagged as a known issue, and they are working on fixing it, which is great. If it is true and they do everything that they say they do here, this is amazing. It's like truly almost all-encompassing fix of all the issues that were flagged as part of the Trailblazers beta so far. The one thing that they don't talk about, and which is substantial and is material, is how markets overlap and how demand and supply net out or don't in the case of multi-market economies. And this is a very significant thing, in fact, because if the way supply and demand combine isn't changed from how it currently works, then this entire system is not going to work. And the reason for that is because let's say, for the sake of argument, I'm going to simplify here, but to explain what I mean, let's say you have an industry market, and the industry market demands 100 tons of steel and produces 100 tons of power generators. Now you add a refinery economy to the same market. And guess what? The refinery economy produces 100 tons of steel and demands 100 tons of power generators. What is the resulting market look like? The resulting market demands nothing and produces nothing, because the 100 tons of steel which are produced by refinery are consumed by the 100 tons of demand of industrial, and the 100 tons of power generators produced by industrial are consumed by the 100 ton of demand of refinery. So the net resulting market in the current system is zero, is a market that does not produce anything and does not demand anything, which, as you can imagine, is not great. With the changes that they're introducing now, the number of multi-market economies is only going to increase, and it's going to increase significantly because of all the factors and the strong and weak links and how they're going to affect markets overall. So if they don't fix the way that supply and demand net out, the end result is we will have markets that basically demand and produce very little, if anything at all, in most of the galaxy. So that needs to be fixed as well. Whether they're going to fix it or not, it's not mentioned in the patch notes. Hopefully they will listen to this too, because otherwise, again, the fix won't. But all in all, I am extraordinarily excited about these changes. I am really, really happy that Frontier has listened to the community on most of the issues that have emerged to date on Trailblazers and Colonization, and have also fixed or adjusted the Corsair in ways that are meaningful. So really excited about this patch. Stay tuned on Wednesday. We'll give it a spin. We'll have a look as to how things actually work in practice after the changes are made. And hopefully, if these fixes stand, we'll be able to sort of kick off colonization proper in a big way in terms of actually designing and architecting systems that can follow some kind of reasonable design intent without being at the mercy of whether things work or not at the end of the roll of the dice. So super excited, looking forward to Wednesday, and glory to mankind. For the Mechan, over and out.